Ooh, you big mad, aren't you? Aren't you? Are you? Am I? Do you even know if you're mad or not? Do you know if repressed anger might be holding you back from capturing all of the abundance that should in fact be coming your way? Well, in this episode, I have the pleasure of talking with Po Hung Yu all about how to get into your body and use it as a guide to pinpoint how to release repressed anger, that repressed anger that is keeping you from reaching your fullest potential. If you think that you might in fact have more to do and capture and live and experience in life than what you are being blocked from right now, then, my friend, this episode is for you. All right, let's go.
Welcome to the Flourishing Entrepreneur Podcast with Alea Harris. If you're looking for actionable ways to stand out from the crowd by standing in your power, you've come to the right place. Each week, we help you and your fellow empire-building entrepreneurs become radically authentic and tap into your unique story to attract your ideal clients. Listen in and learn how to use energy alignment techniques and tried and true marketing strategies to transform from a leader to a legend. And now, your host, Powerhouse Story Brand Certified Guide, award-winning marketer, bioenergetic business coach, and Japanese whiskey lover, Alea Harris.
It feels good to have a guest finally on our Flourishing Entrepreneur podcast. I've been in a series talking about stage to stream, giving you all of my juicy solo episodes about my speaking topics and how you can book me to be a speaker. But now we're transitioning into having conversations more about radical authenticity, rebirth, showing up as your true self, and how that can in fact affect your business's growth, your career's growth, and your overall happiness. And today, for our very first episode, I get to talk to a woman who I adore. She has an amazing story, she has amazing energy, and her laugh is infectious. Her name is Po Hung Yu. She is an emotional alchemist, somatic healer, medicine woman, and the host of the Tao of Po podcast. She guides women in their rebirthing journey and expanding their capacity to love, trust, receive, and be expressed. Their rebirthing journey. The reason why I'm leaning into radical authenticity and thoughts around rebirth is because I've gone through a recent rebirth myself where I feel like when I was in labor with my daughter, I died, and then I had the hard postpartum depression and anxiety journey of clawing my way back into myself, but an even better version of myself. And I'm still at the tail end of that journey, but I really do feel like I've overcome. And during that process, I was like, well, who am I? How do I redefine myself? And it wasn't really a redefinition that I needed. It was a rediscovery. So the conversations that we're going to have today with Po and ongoing with people are really truly about how can you rediscover the core of who you are, the part of you that is the most capable of achieving your goals that you've set and enjoying the journey with less stress, no burnout, no powering through, forcing through, instead flowing with the energy and making it work for you. Because, my friend, building a business does not have to burn you out. Life does not have to be hard. You deserve to be happy. You deserve to feel light. You deserve all of the money and abundance that is coming your way. But in order to get there, you have to learn a new way of moving and being and doing. So often we get stuck when we get stuck by life's traps and challenges, and those boundaries become blockages and those hurdles become hurt that you suppress down inside of you and you cannot overcome. So we're kicking off new types of conversations today with Poe. And also, if you're really wanting to grapple with this rediscovery, you've had a recent life change, you're wanting to move forward, I invite you on my brand new in-person, live and in-person retreat. It's called the Radical Rebirth Retreat. And on the Radical Rebirth Retreat, we get into a deeper healing. We invite you to discover your best self in a loving environment. It's a little bit of a spiritual treat, a little bit of a personal branding intensive so you know who you are when you're done, and a coaching mastermind. It starts before you even land. It's 7 days. And then when you come back, we help you with integration for a month. The purpose of the Radical Rebirth Retreat is to curate loving, immersive experiences that help entrepreneurs and executives transcend challenging life shifts and tell a new story. We're doing everything from plant medicine to yoga to massage to bodywork to Toltec astrology. And we're doing it all in luxury accommodations because your girl is bougie. If you want to learn some more about it and apply to join us, there's only 13 seats available per session. Go to radicalrebirthretreat.com. That's radicalrebirthretreat.com and click apply. I would love to see you there. On your way to becoming a member of the Radical Rebirth Retreat community, now is a great time for you to tune in to this episode because we are in fact talking about excavating the stuff that's on top of all of that juicy self of yours that's being hidden and that your rebirth needs to come and excavate. In this episode with Poe, we're talking about everything from body disassociation, abandonment issues, being afraid to feel and what that looks like. And then we go deep into what is anger. How do you know if you're angry? What is it preventing you from doing? And how then do you flow? And how then might you and your big brain of yours be preventing you from doing all of it? How are you being a master manipulator and manipulating yourself out of your highest good? I would be remiss if I didn't mention that Poe has an amazing group program that helps you solve these anger issues, and it's super duper affordable. If you're interested, she's going to tell you this URL at the end, but I'm going to tell it to you now because you might just see me there because after talking with Poe, I realized that I got some anger issues that might be preventing me from moving forward. Head over to taoofpo.com. That is TAOOFPO.com so you can check that out. It's definitely a program that she says is devoted to the remembrance of who we are and how to live from that place. All right, without further ado, let's get into this amazing, illuminating, and slightly uncomfortable, I'm not gonna lie, because she called me out, slightly uncomfortable conversation with Poe. Hey, Poe, thank you so much for joining me on the Flourishing Entrepreneur podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm so good and so excited to have this conversation with you.
I'm excited too. So, Poe, for the people out there, we are new friends. And Poe is one of those people that you just meet and it was like, oh, yeah, no, we're going to be buddies. You know, there's certain people you meet, you're like, please don't ever talk to me again. She's not one of those people. So I had a call with Poe and I was like, no, we need to integrate within each other's lives. This is what we're doing, not only because of the amazing work that she does around anger and resentment, which conversations we don't talk about often enough or heal from often enough, but also because she seems like a pretty cool chick. So Poe, before we get into our hard-hitting questions, why don't you let the people know who you are and what you do?
Thank you for that. Yeah, I felt the same way when we connected last week. I was like, this woman is amazing. I can't wait till I get to know her better. So yeah, same feelings there. I am a somatic healer, emotional alchemist, medicine woman, spiritual guide. I have a history of being an acupuncturist as well as owning multiple businesses, and worked in corporate America in my 20s. So I also have like financial background. I also was a realtor and a real estate owner. So I have a whole range of things that I've done that support what I do now, actually. But yeah, I support women and all genders really in reclaiming their body, their voice, and their power and their aliveness so that they can really step in to their purpose work. And it's really fun.
I love that. I enjoy it. Before we go any further, I try not to have big vocab words. If I use the big vocab words, I want to break it down. Somatic. Tell the people, what is somatic?
Yeah, so basically, when we talk about the soma is the body. So we get into the body, we're connected to the body, we're feeling the body, we're feeling what's inside of the body, like sensations, emotions, old wounds, trauma, things like that. And, it's very different than like talk therapy, because that can sometimes just be in the mind. And I find a lot of times people are very disconnected from their body because of trauma. They've disassociated and disconnected, which was my story. And so it's so important to come back into the body.
Okay, so you now you've already come up with me my first question. What is that story? You said that was your story. You were disassociated and disconnected. What happened? What's going on?
Yeah, so I basically, so my parents got a divorce. My brother left around the same time. So I had major abandonment wounds. And then that spiraled into me getting raped multiple times between 13 and 16 because my foundation cracked, and I was lost. And so, and also I was a latchkey kid, and like my parents were focused on work. And so I kind of could do whatever I wanted. And I ended up in the wrong places at the wrong time, looking for love, looking to fill up this empty hole inside. And it ended up becoming disastrous. But, I really believe that everything happens for me, even the biggest traumas. I didn't see that for a long time, mind you, right? But it was because I was so deeply depressed and had shame and self-hatred. I even tried to commit suicide when I was 13. And I was very disconnected from my body, as you can imagine. I had no idea what sex was even that was. And so it created all of this conditioning and, trauma in my body. And that was my beginning point. Like I really had to heal myself. And of course, I'm always healing myself. And that guided me to help to heal other people.
How did you get clued into the fact that you were even disassociated from your body?
That's a great question. I mean, in the midst of it, I didn't know, right? Because I didn't even know that was a thing.
And most people are walking around like that all the time. Like, what is she talking about? I can see my body. I'm not a floating ethereal spirit floating alongside my body. I'm in my body. What does it even feel like to know that I'm disassociated?
Yes. So there's a couple of things. So the first is I remember going to a therapist, and she would ask me to tell me what I was feeling in my body. And I couldn't answer her, right? I was like, I don't know what a sensation is, right? A lot of the work I do is connected to sensation. I was like, I don't know what I'm feeling. So I was like, oh, I'm not feeling things, right? I feel numb. And then I went into a program that was more sensual and sexually based, because I knew that I was having issues, right? I was like, I was binge drinking a lot, getting blackout drunk as a young person, finding myself waking up with people in their bed, like I had sex with them. So I'm like, there was a pattern of like self-destruction. Mm-hmm. And so I went to this program, and I realized that because it was a lot of physical interaction, I felt numb. I couldn't feel anything. I couldn't feel my sexual, orgasmic energy. Yeah, just like felt like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I feel anything? Even when I'd have sex, right? I couldn't really feel it.
And so we're talking about like, what's a good way to say it? Like lidocaine if you put lidocaine on your finger, you can't feel it and it's numb? Or are we talking about like I'm not able to interpret sensation? When you say you can't feel it, do you mean physically can't feel it?
It's a combination. I think part of it was like there was a rewiring that needed to happen for me to even understand what I was feeling. But also there was such a layer of numbness where, because I would bypass my body so often, like abandon my body so often, that I was so focused on other people that I wasn't even checking in to what I was experiencing. And so it's not that I didn't feel it. I could only feel if it was more intense.
And so
You know, like
that's you look for intense situations to be in, because that was how you could feel.
Yes, exactly. But then what I realized was actually that was just more intensity to like force something. But when I actually allowed softer and slower touch, that's when I really could feel the true sensation.
Okay, so you had you had experiences that made you disassociate from your body, and then you were in a healing journey where you're like, oh wait, I can't feel anything. How did you get back to feeling? How did you integrate yourself back into a single Po?
Yeah, well, first it took a long time, right? And a lot of focus. And I deep dived into this area because I was like, I want to be more present. I want to be in my body. And so multiple practices, feeling my sensations, really checking in. What is it that I'm actually feeling? Like if I'm feeling, like say I'm having a headache even, letting myself be with that discomfort instead of trying to numb it out, instead of trying to avoid it, right? I would see patterns within myself where I was like trying to numb out with weed or alcohol or, food and things like that. So I started to see a pattern around addiction and how that was helping me to like not feel. And so I would remove those things so that I could start to feel even more, right? So there was different practices, but also like the sensual and, sexual practices was a big part of it for me as well. And I had just spontaneous moments of healing that actually created part of what I teach now, which is based on sensation. So I was just so dedicated to learning how to feel that I would just pay attention and bring awareness as much as I could. And over time, slowly, I started to be able to like experience more aliveness in my body.
How did the lack of feeling show up in other areas of your life? Because we talked about the weed and the sex and the alcohol, but what did that mean? Like you still had to like have a job and like have family. And so when you were in your healing, or right before maybe the beginning of your healing journey, what did that mean for the way that you interacted with the world?
Yeah, I mean, there was definitely levels to it at first. I mean, because I was very functional, right? So I lived a dual life, and I find a lot of women can relate to this because they're so independent and they're, overachievers. That was me. And so I was suffering so deeply, but then also able to like keep it all together and be successful. And so I would go to work, I'd do my thing, but I was checked out. Like it was hard for me to be present. And I would feel like, and there was a lot of social anxiety back then too. And so I had a hard time being around people socially because I would just, like my mind would go other places because of it. So I would notice that a lot. Like, why am I not able to even be here right now?
Was there a fear then of what feeling would, for lack of a better word, feel like? Like, if you could feel, why was that so bad?
Yeah, it wasn't a conscious thought, but what I've discovered along the way is that, yes, I was afraid to feel, and a lot of my clients are afraid to feel because they're afraid to actually, they think it's going to like blow up their life, or they're going to lose control, or they're going to get stuck there, right, in the darkness. And it's the opposite. It's actually, you go through it and then, oh my God, it's light on the other side. But what I found was that the best way to avoid being in the body and healing was that suffering in the mind. Like, so I thought I was feeling because I was so emotional, but more like suffering, like, victim consciousness in my mind, or like feeling sorry for myself, or swampiness. And that's different than actual feeling the real thing. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense. You're basically a master manipulator. And I'm saying this because I am one too. Nice to meet you. We should develop an anonymous group, Master Manipulators Anonymous, because it's like, you know the first level. You're like, okay, I know that I'm disassociated. Or you learn that. And then, but your brain is like, oh, you don't even know the half of it. I'm keeping you fully aware of nothing. You're in your head, not in your body. You don't even know what that feels like because I'm playing this thing and trying to trick you to think that you're doing something.
Yes. And you know what I found a lot too is that, because I was always very smart, right? Even though I was like really fucked up in so many ways emotionally and in my life, I was also really smart and I understood all the things. And so I find that a lot of women that I work with, they've gone to therapy a lot. They've read all the books. They have gone to many like healing programs. And so that can block them because they're like so intelligent and they understand the thing, but they're just doing it from their mind versus having an embodied experience. And that's the game changer.
Oh, okay. For anyone that's listening, I kind of want you to press, there's that little button that like goes back 10 seconds, 10 seconds, 10 seconds. Press that about twice and re-listen to what Poe just said. That is almost all of my audience, because people email me and they DM me and they're like, oh, but Alea, I just don't understand how to do this. I can't figure out, or my favorite, Alea, here's my plan that I put together. It has 3 steps, it's color coded, it's fabulous, of how my healing journey. And I'm like, I mean, I appreciate the dedication to yourself. I'm not knocking it, but they will conceptualize themselves out of their own healing. They will intellectualize the problem so much that they're actually not getting any benefit. They will be able to meditate 3 hours a day and have the morning routine and do all the things and not actually get any benefit from it. And I see it all the time. And it's always the smart ones. The clients that I work with, the more degrees I have, I just know the more difficult their session will be. Because convincing them that they don't know how to do something and that they can't use their brain to do it, oh my God. That's like first 3 sessions by itself.
Yes. It really is a thing. It's like they're outsmarting themselves.
And so then they need to join our newly developed Master Manipulators Anonymous, because that's what they're doing to themselves. They're manipulating themselves away from their healing because it's just so painful. I also am very interested in another thing that you said too about being afraid of feeling the feeling because you're going to get stuck in the feeling. I know someone that is like that. I actually am not like that. I will feel all the feels because I don't know. I know that that's not where I'm going to stay. I don't know why I know that, but I know that. I have a whole bunch of other issues. That just is not one of them. I got one. That's not my issue. But I do know someone who is like that. And so they block it down and then they blow up. Right? Yes. They block it down and then they blow up and then they're like, ooh, I'm so sorry. I don't know where that came from. I'm like, well, probably from all that stuff you've been pushing down in there. Right? So what do you tell someone besides, because saying, well, there's light at the end of the tunnel, you will feel differently later. You just got to go through this. I mean, that sounds like a bunch of lies. Like even me telling you, even though it's the truth, it sounds like, oh yeah, sure. When you're in it and you're feeling the darkness, you're like, no, this darkness is unending. When I was in the depths of my postpartum depression, I was like, I think this is where I live now. And I'm then the smartness, right? Trying to figure out, well, how do I build a couch over here? Because this is apparently the dark room that is now my life. It at least needs some color. Like, I mean, this is me. As opposed to like, how the hell do I get out of this room? I just grew to accept that sadness and deep anxiety and all that were going to follow me. So what do you tell someone to really get them to understand that that's not true?
Well, if somebody isn't willing to hear it, you can't tell them anything. Right? Like that's the first thing. It's like somebody has to be open and willing to actually receive that. I'm not going to force anybody to believe anything.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then second,
Good point. My therapist literally just told me that yesterday. Dr. Schwartz, if you're listening, I promise, if you and Poe are colluding against me, I appreciate you for doing so. Thank you.
And the second part is that, often we are motivated by inspiration or desperation, and usually it's desperation. Mm. And so most of the time people come to me when they're stuck as fuck and they're tired of it. And they're like, then there's a willingness. They're like, okay, like I'm ready to hear what's possible here, because I've been in this spin cycle of the same thing over and over again. I just can't take it anymore. Or sometimes, somebody might have to just hear it said a different way or a new way or multiple times. And then maybe they just have a moment of like, oh my God, yes, right? But there has to be that receptivity. The foundation of my work is based on Taoism with the emphasis on yin. And yin is feminine energy. It's all about surrender, receptivity, openness, softness, and compassion. And so that yin energy needs to be available for any of this to be possible.
We're now going to take a vocabulary break one more time in the interview of Po Hung Yu. Can you please now define Taoism for the class?
Yes. Love it. Oh my God. This might be the funnest, most hilarious interview. This is great. Oh my God. So Taoism is a Chinese philosophy. It's not a religion, and it's based off of nature. And Lao Tzu is the person, the philosopher that created the Tao Te Ching. People might have heard of that book. It's been, translated a gazillion times. And the foundation of it is yin and yang. Yin is the feminine energy. Yang is the masculine energy. And I'm an acupuncturist as well. So, Taoism is the foundation of acupuncture. And my dad is my spiritual teacher, and he's a Taoist teacher. So it's just part of who I am. But they work as one, the feminine and masculine energy. You've seen that symbol, right? That circle.
Black and white symbol. People get it tattooed on them. They don't know what it means. Yep.
Yes, right. So it's describing that symbol is describing the nature of how they work together as an energy. And yin is like the mother, and it's the body. It's all relative. So if we're talking about the body, yin would be the body, yang would be your mind. Yeah. And so this is really about coming back to the body when we think about yin in this way.
And so where does yin get its power from?
That's interesting. I've never thought about that question. I would say it's the surrender. It's the surrender. It's like the deep level of trust and letting go that allows for the magic to happen when we're in that yin energy.
So we're
literally like,
No, go ahead. Literally what?
Yeah. So my anger alchemy, process is yin based, because a lot of times, they'll have like rage practices that are more yang, meaning like more loud and expressive and outward, right? Yin is more inward. And it doesn't mean that in my anger alchemy process, people don't scream or punch or anything like that. It's more that we're dropping into the thing. And also it makes it less scary because some women are like, I don't want to touch my anger. I'm afraid. And so the yin process really allows it to be more gentle and organic versus forcing. The masculine energy is more about the forcing energy, more about the structure and the outwardness. So it really is about allowing yourself to soften into it, which, by the way, is harder than, right? It's harder than the yang aspect.
And I feel like you can also do a lot of performative yang. I can yell and not actually release anything.
Oh my God, you just hit it on the nail. That's been something that's been coming up, in my Rest in Peace resentment program. They were talking about how they were bypassing the spot because they were focusing on the outward expression. Mm-hmm. And so that's the thing with the work of surrender is that being on the spot, being exactly where you are in the moment versus what you think you should be doing, which is what these women that we were talking about.
Let me yell, rah, 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 rah. I feel exactly the same.
It might feel smooth out on the surface for a little bit, but it's like blocking them from actually going deeper.
So I can understand based on the story that you've told, and I haven't even gotten to hear all of your stories yet, but based on the story that we've told so far, I can see where rage is coming from. I can see where anger is coming from. How though, if you don't have a story like that, say like your story is like, oh, I had a normal little life, got me a little job, now I own me a little business, and I'm pissed the fuck off all the time. How do you know that? Because it's not going to be, oh, well, of course I'm angry because I've been through all of this stuff. How do you know that you're angry? And is anger the same as rage? Am I feeling both? How does that show up for most people?
It's different. So there's some people who don't know at all that they have anger living in their body because it's so deeply repressed. Mm-hmm. And so it could come out as, somebody like what I found, there are patterns. Like there's a lot of women who are like people pleasers and good girls or overgivers. I found that these women tend to have a lot of unprocessed and repressed anger in their body. And it might come out as like passive aggressiveness or nitpickiness or complaining or frustrated a lot. But it's just like annoyance. But also, as an acupuncturist, I noticed that some women were very disconnected from their anger, but I would pinpoint it because their body would show symptoms of it because the liver is connected to anger in Chinese medicine, and it's on the right side. So whenever somebody has like a lot of right-sided issues or pain, I would be like, oh, there might be anger here, or like fibroids or cysts, or headaches a lot, or fatigue. There's different ways, even depression. Like a lot of depression is because the anger has been depressed down.
Been pressed down, and now it's just sitting lower. So okay, we're using lots of like down and up and in and out and deep and not deep language. And it's just getting me to think. Like, so if I think about like levels of this, like I think of like maybe like on the top, I'm like mildly annoyed, right? And then downside, I'm like, oh, don't test me. Like that's when like my black girl next level happens. The finger comes out, right? We're getting down a little deeper, right? A little bit like, Then I'm like, oh no, I can feel it in my chest. Or I get hot. I'm getting more and more angry. Then I'm like, oh, deeper down. I'm like angry. But then I feel like all of that, based on what you're saying, is still just the very superficial level of anger.
This is a great point because what I have noticed, because I also facilitate plant medicine journeys, but also like the group, I'm a liaison for inner children, I like to say. No. Like one of my gifts that I
some
feel.
Help because mine often is in this dark room and I pull her out and the next time I talk to her, she's back in there and I know I put her in there and I'm sorry.
Yeah, so many inner children are in there. And like what I found is that there's so many inner children that are full of anger because like you mentioned earlier, not everybody has gone through trauma like I have, but that doesn't mean that they're not angry because, let's say, for example, I've heard this story many times, the child was expressing anger or frustration and the parent was like, oh no, that's not appropriate. You should not feel that way. Like that. Even if they don't yell at you to shut up, there's like a shutting down of your voice and your expression. And then a lot of parents are also like, oh, girls, you need to be a good girl, that good girl conditioning, right? So that pushes all that down too. But then there's other situations where like you might have parents that were rageful and then you express your anger and they shut you down, even though it's like a whole hypocrisy.
Yeah, no.
So all the ways, but essentially the deeper thing is like these young parts of ourselves were shut down somehow. And that's why I see a pattern of many women where their throat and their chest and their mouth and their jaw is tight and they are not able to actually use the fullness of their voice or expression.
So y'all, when I first had a conversation with Poe, she was telling me about her little anger thing. I was like, oh, that's cute, your little anger thing. I'm not angry, though. And then she started talking about all this stuff, like she's talking about right now, like in the throat and the this and the inner child and the bit up. And I said, I apparently have the wrath of God inside of me that needs to come out. Because I know what you guys are thinking. I know it. You guys are like, anger. I'm not angry. I know someone that's anger. Like they go to like, what, Anger's Anonymous, or they beat their spouses, or those are angry people. I am not an angry person. I hope after listening to Poe talk, you had a little come to Jesus moment like I did, that you really probably do have some unprocessed anger. My question to you, Poe, is what happens if I don't do anything about it? What happens if I just keep being my in denial, angry, intellectualizing self?
Yes. Well, there's multiple things. I kind of spoke on a couple, which is like the depression, the insomnia, anxiety, any kind of physical issues, like I mentioned, fibroids and headaches and things like that, but also autoimmune diseases. Dr. Gabor Mate has talks about this all the time. And it could be any kind of disease. Like it literally can come out in the body. So this is the thing about unprocessed emotions and specifically anger. Every emotion has an energy and energy needs to move. And if we do not move it, it has to come out some way. Right. And so it's going to either come out on other people, whether it's like subtly or harshly. It's going to come out on yourself, like self-anger inside and being just an asshole to yourself. Or it's going to come out on your body or your mental health, or all of them. Right. So it's harmful in every single way.
So I have fibroids.
Another thing.
Oh, go ahead. I was like, stop talking. I have fibroids. I have an autoimmune disease. I have depression. I'm like, so why don't you just go ahead and tell us about the RIP resentment course? Is that what it's called? Is there a URL for that? When can we sign up? How much does it cost?
We're not even talking about like, this is also like generational, right? Like, so we haven't even gone there, right? How it's been passed down through the generations when we don't even know it. Also epigenetics, all the whole thing about.
So me and my mama need to come is basically what you're trying to say.
Yes.
Okay.
Another byproduct though is that you're disconnected from yourself and other people, right? Like there's a wall, and it's harder to have more intimacy, more true, genuine connections because there's this constant thing in between us. And that's what I think people want the most is true connection.
Yes, that's why we talk about being radically authentic, or I do anyways. And how you can get to know yourself so that you can find those people who vibrate at that same energy, who are at matching that frequency, who are matching where you are at. But you attract what you are, not what you want. So the problem is if you're, I don't know, sitting here with autoimmune disease and fibroids with depression issues and all of the other things that Poe just listed, you are attracting what matches that current energy signature. Could be what you want to do to move your life forward, or could not. Spoiler alert, it's not what I wanted. So I would rather take myself and my energy, you're saying everything, all emotions, and truthfully, everything has an energy around it, and make my energy match the energy of what I want. That's how manifestation works. Kind of like manifestation 101, right? So yes. I want you to tell me about how I can do this in this course. Tell me about this course. Tell me all the things. It's not a course, it's a group program. Group coaching?
It's a group program, yeah. And so, yeah, and especially because you work with people, with businesses, this is so important when we talk about magnetic energy. When we transform and alchemize the anger, it allows for more receptivity for that abundance and connection and goodness and money and all those things to come in too. But yeah, Rest in Peace Resentment is a 6-week group program. It's 5 calls. And for this one, it's all women. I have gotten a request to do a mixed gender one, which I think would be really powerful and would break down barriers. But yeah, it's basically, I teach you how to be in this yin-based anger alchemy process. I do guided journeys. I coach women one-on-one in the group, and really focusing in on going deeper to the root, because everything I do is about going to the core wound. Because like a tree, if we keep trimming the branches, that doesn't, that's not enough. We need to go to the actual root to heal. And so this process really allows you to drop into where it began, right? Versus just trying to smooth out those top level surfaces like we were talking about. Mm-hmm. And if you notice yourself having the same patterns over and over again, it's saying there is a root wound that has not been touched or healed, from my experience. So yeah, it's $650 early bird until tomorrow. I don't know when this is coming out, but
sorry, you guys missed it. What's the regular price?
$800. But it's actually, because when I created this, I was like, I want to make this as accessible as I can based off of my energy and time, because I just have felt the collective and how many people are walking around with repressed anger. And I'm like, this is like a major service that I'm giving, mm-hmm. because no one's talking about it. I never saw a program that's just focused on anger, right? And so I want to make it as accessible, not only financially, but also it's not scary. A lot of women are scared, and my process takes the fear and the scariness out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So
it starts September 10th.
Starts September 10th. This is released before September 10th. And if you aren't listening to this before September 10th, reach out to Poe. This is not the only one of these that's happening, right? Find out when the next one is. I might be in it with you, because apparently your girl's got some anger issues. And I'm teasing and I'm joking, but I think that is so powerful to realize that and to name it and to see how it can manifest differently than how we always think of anger, like the cartoon character with the steam coming out of its ears. Oh, it's anger. It, especially for women or people that operate in that feminine energy, could look differently. It could really look differently. So
yeah, and what you just said was really important, because the first piece is the acknowledgement, because so many women don't want to admit it because there's so much shame and judgment around it. And so it's really important that we bring approval to this. It's a human emotion. There's actually healthy anger as well. Mm-hmm. And so really bringing approval to it.
Whew. Okay, I have a final question that's a little bit unrelated, but I just want to know. I'm very curious. As for everything we've talked about, if you could ask the universe for something right now and be 100% sure it would manifest, what would it be?
My life partner.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice.
Yeah.
I have a hubby. I'm pretty sure he's my life partner. Today he is, at least. No, I'm kidding. I love him. He's my life partner, and it is fabulous. It is fabulous. He makes cute babies, if nothing else. Ruby Coral's adorable. So we'll keep him. And I am touching and agreeing and sending love and light to you for the universe to help you manifest that.
Thank you so much.
Is there anything else you would like to tell the people out there? Any final words of wisdom?
Wisdom. Well, if you want to check out more wisdom, I also have a podcast called Tao of Po, which you're going to be on at some point.
I'm so excited.
But yeah, the wisdom is that the only way to heal and to expand is through love. Like, I'm a shadow worker, but that means I'm also a light worker. Light and love and compassion and approval and gentleness and kindness, the yin energy, is the only way to heal. We cannot force ourselves to heal. We cannot force ourselves to feel. We can't force ourselves to express. We can't force ourselves to anything. We can, but it's going to bypass the real
It ain't gonna work.
So
it ain't gonna work out real well for us.
it ain't going to work the way you want it to.
Yeah. Well, my darling Poe, this has been amazing and illuminating and hilarious. Tell the people, if they want some more of that Poe magic, where they can find you.
They can find me at taoofpo.com. That's TAOOFPO. And I'm on Instagram, on Facebook, LinkedIn, but I'm not really on LinkedIn that much. But
So Instagram and Facebook and the website.
Basically.
That's where we're going to find you.
Yes. And I'm on my stories a lot. I love to connect with the people. And it's fun. I love engaging with folks. So come and check me out.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for being a guest. This has been wonderful. And until I see you on your podcast, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
You too. Thank you.
Well, apparently I have anger issues. I guess that's a surprising thing for me. Was it surprising for you? Do you feel like you have some repressed anger? If not, what other limiting beliefs might be holding you back? Or actually not even beliefs, it's limiting feelings that might be trapped into your body. What could be preventing you from unearthing your most radically authentic self, the self that the world needs, the self that is the most attractive to abundance and partners and opportunities? What's holding you back? I encourage you to think that through, and if you do need help doing that, work with Poe and also join me on the Radical Rebirth Retreat. On the Radical Rebirth Retreat, we go step by step using plant medicine to dive into what makes you, you. Removing all of the ideas from other people, removing anger, removing hurt, getting down into the core of who you are. We have expert practitioners who have been in tight-knit circles you might not even be able to access on your own. And of course, there are only 13 slots available. If you are ready to get the life that you deserve, to connect more effectively with your team and clients, to stop wasting time drowning in confusion and pain, and to develop a unique, radically authentic personal brand story that reinvigorates your career or your business, then I invite you to apply, please apply, to be a member of the Radical Rebirth community and go with us on our next retreat. To learn more, head to www.radicalrebirthretreat.com. Again, that is radicalrebirthretreat.com. Okay, until next time, my name is Alea Harris. This is the Flourishing Entrepreneur Podcast, and I am wishing you lots of love, light, and abundance. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Flourishing Entrepreneur Podcast with Alea Harris. Vibing with what you hear? Leave a 5-star review to spread the love, and be sure to click subscribe. We wish you love, light, and abundance. See you next time.